What was it like for you living and working from an RV for 2 years?
It was nowhere near as glamorous as Instagram, as influencers kind of make it seem.
Are you ready? All right. Welcome to the Remote Work and Travel Show. I am your host, Nora Dunn, and in this series, which has been going on for over a year, I might add, I speak with ordinary people who have extraordinary travel lifestyles and remote careers to get the real dirt on what it's like to work abroad while traveling long term. And my guest today has done this in many different shapes and forms, so I'm excited to speak with her today. She is Julia Taylor. Julia Taylor is a self-taught web developer and online business owner who founded GeekPack in 2018. She's passionate about empowering women and girls everywhere to create better lives for themselves by teaching them how to code and subsequently manage their own businesses in the digital realm. Her own journey into the world of coding began in 2008 for reasons we will discuss shortly. She ran her business location independently as a WordPress developer, including living and working from an RV for 2 years. Eventually, she transitioned into teaching others how to code and develop their own online businesses. And since founding GeekPack, Julia has empowered over 2,400 women to learn coding and work on their own terms as virtual business owners. Welcome to the show, Julia. It's so nice to meet you.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to be here.
Excellent. The enthusiasm is mutual. Now, before I dive into some of the more specific questions I have about what you do and why you do it, I'd like to take everybody back to 2008 when you were a military spouse. And my understanding of anyone who is a military spouse is it's a very transient career, it's a very transient lifestyle, and it can be very difficult to manage a career. So how were you managing your own career in this time, and what was your lifestyle like?
I'll take you back to 2008, and I actually didn't become a military spouse until, gosh, I had to think about it, 2011. But in 2008 is kind of when my journey begins. So I used to work for the U.S. intelligence community. And in 2008, I was deployed to Afghanistan. I did, that was my first deployment. I did 6 months there. And while I was there, not long after arriving, I met and fell in love with a guy. He happens to be British, and that's kind of the plot twist there. And we dated in so much as you can in Afghanistan. And of course, I then I know it was bizarre, kind of thinking back to that time. And I did 6 months there. He was doing a lot of time there, and I came home, and we decided to stay together. And we did long distance for about a year and a half. And I deployed again. He deployed multiple times, and it was a lot of just going back and forth. And professionally, I loved what I did, but personally, it was not working. So I decided to leave my job with the government and move to the UK to get married. So in 2011, I did officially become a military spouse. And as you mentioned, we moved a lot. So here I'd gone from having a fantastic career with the US government, with my career projection was just going up and up and up. And I left that to follow my heart, as cliche as that sounds. And we're still married to this day. We just celebrated our 10-year wedding anniversary a few weeks ago. So I moved across, we got married, and I found myself moving every couple of years. So with his job. So I realized very early on that if I wanted to have any sort of kind of career again, I needed to find something that meant I could be location independent. Because of his job, we were very location dependent. So I was desperately looking for something, and I didn't even know where to start. I didn't know that online businesses were real. Of course, I thought everything was a scam. I didn't know you could, I didn't have any education in anything techie. I'd never coded before, nothing like that. So I randomly came across coding, kind of forced into it by a boss at one of my 9 to 5s. And that's when it kind of clicked. And it was just completely magical for me, realizing that I Googled, my boss asked me to do something. I Googled what he asked me to do because I didn't know what he was talking about. And I found this line of code, and I figured out how to put it into the back end of the website. Again, Google was my best friend back then. And sure enough, it worked, and all the light bulbs just kind of went off. And I thought, if I could figure this out in 5 minutes, what if I were to learn this as a skill then surely companies would want to hire me and I could work remotely. And I had this kind of dream idea that a real job would want to hire me, and of course that didn't work out. So, but yeah, that's kind of my story and how I got started.
And for anyone who is watching this, it's very important to remind you that this is 2011. This is when words like location independent didn't even exist. The idea of a remote career, like you said, you look at these websites on the internet and they look more like scams than real deals or possibilities. Coding as well was certainly not in its infancy, but it was certainly in the process of being developed, because really 2011, in my opinion, was really when the move to online e-commerce and entrepreneurship and businesses was really getting going. And that's when the demand for coders was really getting rolling. So because you were starting this location independent business and developing this new skill in the very early days, you, like me, probably stumbled up your way up the learning curve. I mean, I made a lot of mistakes. I'm sure you did as well. But I'm curious what it was like for you in those early days and what you learned and how that has evolved.
It was really hard. And I try not to say the word mistakes too often because I made a lot of them, but I learned a lot of lessons. So I try very hard now. I have the absolute honor and joy to teach other women how to code. And I really want to shorten their time, because it took me, and I kind of fell into it 2011, 2012, but I didn't actually start my online business until 2016. So that is a huge gap. And I don't want my students to have to do that. But I learned a lot of lessons in that time. I had imposter syndrome like no one's business. Like I said, I tried to get a real job, but no one would consider me at all. It wasn't even something that anyone would even look at a resume, because I didn't go and get a fancy degree, or I didn't have 82 years of experience or whatever. So I was really, really discouraged, even though I taught myself and I was super passionate about it and I loved it and I was pretty good at it. No one would still ever look at me. And a friend of mine, he was actually a friend of my husband's. He was retiring from the military, starting his own business, and he said, "Well, you know how to build websites. Can you build me a website? I need one for my business." And I was like, "That's silly. Who does that?" So sure enough, he convinced me, and I did. I built him his website, and he loved it. He's like, "This is it. This is what you should do. You should." Start your own business and build websites for small businesses. And I was like, that's not a real thing. Like that is, I was so against. No one in my family was an entrepreneur. I didn't really know what that meant. And all I ever knew was having a real job. So it really took a lot of time for me to kind of get over those hurdles. And I finally thought, okay, well, I'm not getting a real job. No one's considering me. And this is what I love and what I want to do. So why not? I'll give it a go. So I did. I started a business, and even once I technically started it, it still took me about a year and a half before I found clients, because I didn't know I could find clients on Facebook. I didn't know, and of course, I wasn't that savvy with social media back then because of my last job. So it took me a little bit longer to kind of get into the kind of social media realm of working online and things like that. So it all kind of started to pick up in late 2016. In early 2017, I found a community of other women on in a Facebook group, and they all had their own online businesses. And I thought, oh my gosh, like there's other people that I can talk to about this, and we could share experiences, and that really opened my eyes to, okay, this is not a scam. This is a real thing. I have a real tangible skill that I can offer, and I can help people with all sorts of stuff in their like the tech side of their business, their website, hosting, domains, like all the stuff that goes along with it. And that I did client work, so working with clients, and I ran an agency for about a couple years, really. And then it was while I was running my agency, my husband decided to retire from the military. He did 21 years. And we thought, well, what's next? Is he going to get, the real job? And he was looking at places in Silicon Valley, And we thought, well, why don't we love to travel. We didn't know where we wanted to settle in the US. And we thought, well, why don't we just sell everything and live in an RV and just travel around the US? So we did. And it was the most freeing experience. We sold everything, vehicles, furniture, like everything, moved into an RV. And for 2 years, we traveled around the US, and I was working, he was working, starting his own business. And it was while I was traveling, and I'm kind of sharing my experience on Instagram, and people are saying to me, how are you able to um, travel full time? Are you, independently wealthy? Are your parents paying for it? All these things, which, of course, none of those things were real. And I said, no, I taught myself how to code, and I build websites, and I have my own business. And everyone was like, I want to learn how to do that. That sounds like a real legit thing to do. So I thought, okay, well, I'll give it a go. I'd never taught anything before, but I had a lot of experience learning, being self-taught. I kind of knew what worked for me when I was going through the learning process. So I thought, well, I'm just going to teach it the way that I wish I'd been taught. That's the only thing I knew how to do. And sure enough, people enjoyed it and they wanted to learn more. So that's kind of where the education piece came in. And now full time, I get to teach women how to code and build online businesses and work from anywhere and have the location independent lifestyle that they want and need. So I've been doing that since 2018.
You pretty much answered every question I have prepared for you. So thank you very much, everybody, and good night.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That was absolutely perfect. You're obviously a very accomplished guest because you know how to create the story arc and to to really lay the foundation for what it is, this career progression. Because you did so many things, you've experienced things, you were self-taught a skill. And then you were looking for jobs, traditional jobs, with that skill, realized that those weren't really available to you. So you went out and you did it yourself as a freelancer. And then you turned that freelance work into an agency where I'm assuming you employed other people in addition to doing your own client work. And then as you continued to network and your business continued to evolve, you saw a new need, it's very entrepreneurial of you, in realizing that there were other people who wanted to learn the skills that you had already developed by yourself, right? With the learning experiences along the way. So that's an amazing story. Now, prior to this, did you have any entrepreneurial experience, or did you just feel your way into this whole thing?
I didn't. No, none. I felt my way into it. Now, that being said, I do have a business coach who I actually met back in 2017, and I've been working with her ever since. I was just at a live event with her and all the other people she coaches last week. So I do things pretty slowly. I like to watch and kind of watch other entrepreneurs, and I see what they do. And then I go, ooh, I like that idea, but I'm going to kind of tweak it this way. Or I like that idea, I'm going to tweak it that way. So there's not a lot of things that I do that's kind of like no one's ever done before, but I don't want to reinvent the wheel. But I do things pretty slowly and in my time, which has worked very well for me. And I there's times to move quick and there's times to kind of move slow. And the growth of my business has, I have just taken a lot of advice from a lot of other people, very successful entrepreneurs, because I don't really have that bone in my body. It's more, it's a learned skill. Growing my team, running my team is something that I absolutely love and adore. And that, again, is a learned skill. I've had a lot of people help me, give me ideas and things. So, I'm very, very good at taking advice and running with people that give me good advice and just going for it. So that's really how I've built the business and grown the business.
I so appreciate the fact that you're saying that this was a learned skill for you, because I think that there's a school of thought out there that entrepreneurialism or someone who is an entrepreneur is a born entrepreneur. They've got that magical DNA that makes them a good entrepreneur. And so the fact that you can say, no, it's learned, and the fact that you didn't try to reinvent the wheel, you learned from the people who were doing things and doing them well. You got the coach, you invested in yourself as well as in your business and your skills, and you applied everything that you were learning into your business. I mean, that really is That's entrepreneurialism at its finest. And you have done an exemplary job of that. So good for you. What are some of the key differences that you experienced between when you first started freelancing and then, like, so what was the inspiration and the differences between when you went from freelancing on your own to running an agency to then running GeekPack? What was your inspiration to scale in that way? And what changed for you in terms of how you manage your business and your daily operations?
When I was freelancing, I loved it because I was doing the thing that I loved. I got to code, I got to build websites, I got to kind of get in and do all the dirty work, and I loved it. So that was I when I was freelancing, I thought, why would I ever do anything different? Because I don't have to manage anyone. It's just me. I do what I want and this and that. And I very quickly got way too busy and I said yes to way too many jobs. And it got to a point to where I was literally working nonstop. And that was not all that much fun. So here I tried to create a business and lifestyle for myself where I was location independent, but I was working all the time. So it didn't really matter where I was working. I was just working all the time. So I thought, okay, I'll bring in some help, and then I can start to outsource some projects and manage it rather than being the one that was doing it. Surprisingly, I really enjoyed the having other people doing things. I enjoyed that aspect, but that was probably my least favorite kind of phase in the business because they weren't employees, so they weren't kind of on the team. They were subcontractors, so they were doing other things, and my business was not kind of the focus. So I didn't feel like we were a team. So it was more, I don't know, I wasn't doing the thing that I loved. I was making more money and I had more clients, but it wasn't as fulfilling. I felt kind of lost in that stage. And then when we started traveling and people asked me to teach, the next kind of phase that I went into was that I absolutely loved was seeing other women who had never ever coded before, nothing. I never thought they could do it, and their reaction when they did something that they've never done before. That when you hear learning to code, immediately people kind of think, oh, that's going to be hard because Hollywood makes you think it's hard, or makes you think that only men can do it that have 82 years of experience or whatever. There's all these misconceptions. So when I was able to kind of start from very, very beginning and show them these cool tricks and like see it happen on the screen, and their reaction, like, oh my gosh, me, I can do this. That was what I kept hearing, was incredibly fulfilling to think that I could share that magical moment with other women. And like at the end of the day, I teach a skill. However, when women learn that skill, it's their confidence that skyrockets. And that is what we teach. That is what we empower women through learning this quote unquote hard skill. But when you see the confidence just skyrocket, that is absolutely amazing. So that was the kind of the next phase that I loved. And then as GeekPack really started to grow, I thought, okay, I need a team. I need employees. I need people who are working in my team and just on my team. And that's where I am now. And it is, I mean, I struggle not to get choked up, but it is the most incredible and rewarding experience that I get to work with women on my team who love my mission, the GeekPack vision, the core values. Like, they live it and breathe it and they believe in it. And everyone that's on my team came through my program, and they learned how to do all the things, and they project the same love and care and support and encouragement to my community that I used to. And now I get to empower my team to so that they know that they can then go and empower all the women in my community. So that's where I am now. And it has been such an interesting, I mean, just, I don't think I've ever actually said all that out loud before. So being able to kind of go back and watch the growth and the change, I'm just so incredibly fortunate that I get to. And as I said at the beginning, running a team, and all of the things that come with that, that is a learned skill. I didn't know how to do that. I'd never managed anyone before. And I read a lot of books, and I listen to a lot of experts, and I kind of take what works for me personally. And I just try to make sure that if my love and passion for GeekPack and the community of women that we have, that goes to my team, and then they take that and they push that down to the community as well. So that's kind of been the progression throughout my career so far.
One of the things that occasionally happens for entrepreneurs when they evolve from working in their business to working on their business is they find that they're no longer doing the tasks that they really trained themselves to do and that were really the impetus for starting the business to begin with. And it sounds from your own progression, that's exactly what happened. Your daily tasks now are completely different from what they once were. And you're definitely working on the business, and you're managing, empowering a team to do it. And you're speaking about it with great passion and enthusiasm. So I feel like you made that transition well. But for someone who might feel that that they've maybe lost sight of the ball, would you have any advice for them?
So lost sight of the ball in the sense of the thing that they started to do that they loved initially.
And suddenly they're now lost in the weeds of working on the business as opposed to in it and doing the tasks that they initially enjoyed doing.
Sure. So I still struggle with this, and I'm not so sure that it's something that I'll ever, get over. I love to code, and I still love all the nitty gritty. However, what I love more is growing my team, growing my community, empowering more women, impacting more women. So I know, and that's more of like a longer term result. It's almost like when you're a little kid and you just, you want some candy, and you don't want to wait until dinner. And it, like, if I just want to, like, what immediately gives me pleasure is coding. However, long term, that's not getting me, my business, my team, my community where I want to be. So I have to keep sight of that, and I constantly remind myself of my vision. And it is reach, it is impact, it is how can we empower as many women and girls all around the world as possible. I have to keep that long view, because short term I absolutely just want to do the things, but the long view. So I do things like this. I am being on shows and podcasts, and I will network, and I build relationships, because those are the things that will take GeekPack to the next level, which means I can grow my team, and I can grow my community, and I can impact and empower more women. So I have to constantly keep reminding myself of my vision in order to keep moving the needle forward. And I would say that's probably the most important thing that I've done in my business. Is I spent a good amount of time figuring out what is the GeekPack mission, our core values, and our vision. And I remind myself of those things every single day. Every decision I make in the business, is it in line with our mission, core values, and vision? If it's not, I don't do it. If it is, then I do it, and I figure out the timeline. So, but figuring out those things was so impactful that now, not only for myself, but for my team and my community, we know where we're going, and we're all on the same path together. So that's probably the best way to keep the eye on the ball.
You found the entrepreneurial secret sauce, which is the vision, the mission, and the goals. Absolutely. The overarching vision is what keeps you really getting out of bed every day and doing the thing and moving towards something else. And like you say, also inspiring your team members. Brilliant. Love it. Okay. I want to pivot. And I want to go over to your experience of living and working from an RV full-time for 2 years. Now, I had a very short dally with camper van life, at which point I realized that was probably not my thing. But I'm also well aware that van life and RV life are two different things, and they come with a different set of lifestyle and equipment and all that sort of stuff. What was it like for you living and working from an RV for 2 years?
It was nowhere near as glamorous as Instagram, as
Yes.
influencers kind of make it seem. It was not. As I mentioned before, that was that was probably right in the period in my business when I was working the most. I was still running my agency and starting up the education side at the same time. So I was constantly having to find an internet connection, and that was just a nightmare. And it really limited us as to where we could go. Running an agency and building an education piece to your business, it was hard work. And it's only now this year where I'm starting to kind of reap the rewards of all of that hard work. So we were constantly chasing an internet signal, and it was not the glamorous sunsets and hikes. We still did all those things, but nowhere near what we expected. So I think, and my husband was starting his own business while we were traveling as well. So it was it was amazing to get to travel around, and we traveled through the town that I live in now, and we fell in love with it, and we're like, this is it. This is where we want to settle in as much as we can settle. And yeah, so it was a fantastic experience, but it was not so much the glamorous lifestyle that I think we expected.
I'm really glad that you shared the reality versus the Instagram version of the lifestyle. Is that why you ultimately came off the road? Is it like, did you come off the road because you found the place, the town, and the place that you wanted to live, or did you come off the road because you just found that it was not a complementary lifestyle to the work that you were looking to do?
The second one, it was not. We were not enjoying the travel because we were working so much, and it didn't quite kind of fit with where we were in our work, where we were professionally, and where we wanted to be personally. And honestly, since and we got very lucky with the house and the area that we settled in. But now we have my husband has a truck with a rooftop tent on it. So we still go and travel and camp. I mean, we're 3 hours from Moab, we're, national parks at our doorstep. So we still absolutely do the travel, and we've gone down to Baja, Mexico, and anywhere we can go in the truck with the rooftop tent. That's really at our core what we love. And now that I have a team, I'd still take my laptop everywhere I go. And I if I have a connection, I will check and see how things are going and this and that. But now when I travel, I try very, very hard to be in the moment and to be intentional about my time, and not try to take all the Instagram pictures to kind of show off, because I got to do that and it didn't feel kind of honest and genuine and authentic. Whereas now, because I have built the business and I have the team and I know that everything is going fine with the business, when I get to travel, I can check in, but I really try to just be in the moment and be present. We still get to have amazing travel experiences, but I don't feel the need to show it off as much as I used to.
Well, I'm glad that you're not glorifying the lifestyle. Thank you for that. And thank you for your honesty around that. I did an interview with Gary Arndt a few moons ago, and he said it very well. He said, you can travel and you can work online, but you cannot do them simultaneously. I mean, you can work online while you're on the road, but the time and energy required to work online, it doesn't really matter where you are in the world in that time. All you need is, like you said, the internet connection. And so the lifestyle of travel is often dictated by your work. And because while you were in the RV, you were also in a transitional phase of your business, I'm sure that, even more of your time and energy and really just psychic mind space was in your business, to the point where you weren't really able to appreciate the wonders that were around you in the travel experience. So for you to now separate out the travel experience from the work, and you're still working on the road, but you're able to even just mentally say, okay, I'm having a travel experience right now. I'm going to throw myself into this. And then when I get back at the end of the day, I'm going to throw myself into work. I think that is really a necessary thing for anyone who is looking at working abroad. That's also a skill that is learned. One of the things that I really like about GeekPack's vision is that you are empowering women and women around the world who learn to code and develop these online businesses. How is it that you are reaching some of the women? I mean, some of the people whose lives you can really change and affect would be women who are in developing countries, because with this skill, they can then develop businesses that would really give them new opportunities and new ways to provide for themselves and their families. So how is it that you reach women around the world with GeekPack?
So we just started literally a couple weeks ago, a brand new program to do exactly that, because it's hard. And so I guess my first question is, are you familiar with Tom's Shoes? You know, the shoes, the shoe company, and they have a one-for-one kind of marketing model. Are you familiar with those?
Yep, absolutely. Every time, so for every pair that somebody buys, they donate a pair to, I think, a homeless person.
Yes, I believe. Yeah, I think now they kind of, the extra pair of shoes goes around the world, but it started with, I believe, with kids in developing countries. But yes, one for one. So someone buys a pair of shoes, and then a pair of shoes is donated to someone who needs it. I always had a big dream for GeekPack that I would one day start a nonprofit, and nothing gets me more excited than thinking that I could have a nonprofit arm to GeekPack. When I started to look into it, come to find out, setting up a nonprofit, running a nonprofit, and all the kind of stuff that goes along with it is a real pain, because there's all the rules and the bureaucracy that goes along with it. And I thought, why would I put myself, why it's effectively starting another business. And why would I put myself through that when I have the means now with the success of my for-profit business, that I could do something like what Tom's Shoes has done. I had this, revelation. I thought, well, why don't I create something? And I did, and I've called it Geek for Geek, and it's exactly that. It's I say it's exactly that. It is still very much in its infancy. This is a really, really good example of taking imperfect action when you're very passionate about something. So I tell my students all the time to take imperfect action, even if it's not right, even if it's scary, like all these reasons. And I thought, well, I better kind of show up. If I'm telling them to do it, I better do it. So I decided I'm just going to get it set up. I'm going to get it started and see how it goes, and it will iterate and it will change. And, a year from now, Geek for Geek will probably look different than it is now. But I just wanted to do something. So I reached out to an international nonprofit called Dress for Success, and they work with women in rough financial situations. The way it was started was to dress them in suits when they go into interviews. But their organization has morphed to really work with women, primarily single women, all around the world, to make sure that they're kind of helped out in rough financial situations. So I partnered with Dress for Success, and they were able to identify 20 women who really could use my program, and we brought them into the program. So we have these 20 women who otherwise would not have been able to join the program, and they get to be in the community and learn the skills and take that on, and either apply for that job, or they can start their own business, or they can get that raise, all the things that they could do now with these tangible skills like we talked about. That's kind of the beginning of Geek for Geek, and I am right now on the hunt, trying to find other nonprofits all around the world to partner with, who can say to me, we have, X amount of women who need your program. And then, so long as it's the right fit, we will put them, we will take them into our program. And it's just that, it's the Geek for Geek. And ideally one day I would like it to be when someone joins my program and pays the amount, that someone else is then able to join. That's where I would like to get in the future. But for now, I am able to just say, my for-profit business can take X number of women, and we will bring them through the program. So I'm incredibly fortunate to be in the position to be able to offer this program. Like I said, it's imperfect action combined with a passion that I have, and I don't have to mess with the whole bureaucracy of a nonprofit. I just get to do it because I want to. because I have an amazing team, because I have an amazing community, and because I know it will impact so many women's lives that wouldn't otherwise be able to do something like this. So that's one of the ways that we are growing, and we're trying to impact as many women as we can, regardless of their financial standing.
All right, everybody who is watching or listening to this, hear Julia now. If you run or know somebody who runs a nonprofit who can identify women who can learn, who could use these skills and would like to learn to code and start a digital business and help themselves and their families have a new life together, get a hold of Julia at GeekPack. Thank you for that. Julia, this is brilliant. It's been fantastic and informative and inspirational. Where can people find you and connect with you?
The easiest place is probably just my website. It's geekpack.co. I do have an Instagram account, and all the other social media. On social media, I'm typically Julia the Geek, but my website is geekpack.co, and we've got lots of stuff on there. The charities that we support, I mentioned our mission, our core values, our vision, all of that is on there, and all the other things that we do in GeekPack. So that's probably the best place to go.
Excellent. And I noticed you have a very full YouTube channel full of all kinds of instructional and inspirational and fun videos as well. You're very fun
Oh, thank you.
on the camera. So I'm going to link to all of that, your channel, your site, your channels, including Instagram, in the show notes or description. And while you're down there, guys, you're also going to find a free link for a checklist of 10 things to do before you travel long term. I highly recommend you check out this checklist because it's going to arm you for all of the things that Julia and I encountered the hard way. And it's going to make sure that your learning curve and your transition to working abroad is as smooth as it can possibly be. So thank you so much, Julia, for joining me today. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
I'm Nora Dunn, and I'm otherwise known as the Professional Hobo, and I will catch you next time.